Yo guys, what is up? Welcome to the new video. I am the Casual Racing Gamer, and today we are hopping into the Oculus Quest 2 settings, different ways to run it in iRacing, and this is just going to be something really cool, guys. You know, a lot of you guys have been asking me about some settings that I run on the Quest, some settings that I run in iRacing, if I use the Oculus software, if I use OpenXR, there's OpenVR, there's a bunch of open stuff. So we are going to dive into all of that stuff. Now, just know I am not a professional in all these settings. This is nothing scientifically proven by me or anything else. I'll just show you what I run, and we're going to do a couple little tests and see if we get better performance from one system or the other running through our Quest 2. But I'll show you things that I change, things that I do. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little different on your system. You know, how high you can push the graphics, how high you can change some settings that I change, you know, depending on what you're running. Just so you know, I am running an RTX 3080, and I am also running an Intel i7 10th gen CPU. So that's what I am running. So depending on what you're running, you might have to change things and alter some settings, you know, to fit your system. So before we actually hop into the headset and you know, run some tests in iRacing, so just to show you some things that you want to change, you want to go to your documents, you want to go into your iRacing folder, and then what you want to do is you want to open up what I have circled here in red. There's a couple different options here, and this is going to show you like numerically on a graph when we're running in iRacing, and it's gonna let these numbers actually change in real time. If you don't alter this, at least the way it used to work is your numbers will just stick at a certain number like 12, and you won't really see the performance that you're getting in your headset. So what you want to do is you want to open this, and I think you might only have to change it in your render DX11, but I do have it changed in my other specific ones as well. But what you want to do is you want to find fully wait for sync, and you want to set that to 1. And what that's going to do, it's going to update our graphical number for our GPU and our CPU usage while we're in iRacing, and we'll be able to see that number actually change in real time, and we're going to show you what you should be looking for. So that's the first thing you want to make sure that you change. Then the other thing you want to do, and these are my settings that I do, you want to go to your program files, Oculus support, Oculus diagnostics folder, open up the Oculus debug tool. Now this tool has changed a lot since I first started running my Quest 2 and even the Quest. So some settings act differently and they might not perform like they used to, but just things that I'm still running here is I have in my encode dynamic bitrate disabled. So what I believe this does now, and this is a new setting that wasn't always here, I think it actually will alter your bit rate depending on your system, and so it'll go up and down, and your bit rate is going to affect your compression. So when you guys see like blurriness and things like that, or like the track is blurry and not clear and you don't see all the details, that's because your bit rate's like lowering down. So you want to really get your bit rate as high as possible, and that's going to also affect the resolution that you're running, the frames that you pick. The lower, the more your system can handle, the higher the bit rate can be. So me personally, I would rather have a higher bit rate and really have everything crystal clear than go to like a higher frames per second or a higher hertz setting to get a lower bit rate. To me, I wouldn't sacrifice my bit rate for my actual frames. But so I have this disabled because I set my encode bitrate automatically to 500. To me, that is nice and clear, super clear, lots of detail, and I don't get that blurriness. Your system might not be able to actually push 500. So, you'll have to play around and see, or just keep this on default and let the system, kind of do its own thing for you. But I like to just keep it on 500. The pixels per display pixel override, I'm not even sure if this is actually works like it used to anymore, but this used to kind of be a way to like kind of super sample and oversample your picture. But I don't know if it actually still works the same. We have another setting in here, link sharpening. I have it on auto. Sometimes I just put it in enabled, but if you actually play with this while you're in the headset and shut it off, you'll see like a tremendous difference if link sharpening is actually disabled. It is kind of really blurry. So, I believe your system should be pushing link sharpening, and if your system's not and you actually shut it off and that's what you actually see like regularly while it's on auto, then you might want to push some things down to get link sharpening to actually be enabled. So auto should be enabling it, but if not, you might want to check that out. So also another setting here, which I don't touch, but is distortion curvature, which, sometimes you'll see things are more clear in the center. And as you go outside of your I always have a problem with that word, peripheral vision, you'll see things actually blur off, and that's done on purpose. So distortion curvature, it overrides, it gives you more pixel density in the center. So if you go to low, it will actually give you more pixel density on the outer edges too. But you're gonna be actually asking for a lot more power from your system. So you might not want to do that. But that's up to you. I keep it on default and I let the thing, I let the system do its own thing. I'm really more focused on, the Quest 2 has a pretty nice sharp picture in your actual field of view. So I'm happy with that. Asynchronous space warp, if your system's like struggling, it'll drop it down to like 45 frames per second. If let's say you're running 90, and it will like then try to double the frames on its own, but you're really running at 45. I have it on auto. I sometimes even just put it disabled. I don't want that happening. If my system actually has to do that, then I need to change some other settings. So this is your Oculus debug tool. Now also in here, we're going to use our HUD to actually track how our headset's doing and running in the different options that we have within iRacing. So, we're going to be using performance here. So we'll be able to actually see how our headset's running, frames, if they're dropping, latency and things like that when we turn that on. So now let me show you the resolution that we'll be testing this on. I'll be running it at 5408 by 2736, which is a 1.5x of the render resolution where 1.0 is. Now, I believe this might be different depending on your system that you're running. So, this resolution at 1.5x on my system might actually be different on yours. I would love if you let me know. Leave it in the comments. If you're running a different GPU or something like that, where this highest resolution might be like a 1.7 or a 1.6 or a 1.8 or something like that. I think that might change depending on your, on your system power. So like for me, a 1.0 is a 3616 by 1840. If we go to 80, a 1x would be 3456 by 174. And as we move up, the 1x goes down. And then if you go all the way up, I'm now at a 1.7x at 90 hertz, where at 72 hertz at that resolution, I'm at a 1.5x. So I think that's really going to be dependent on your system, like I said. But that's what we're going to be running. We're going to be running 1.5x at 72 hertz. So we're maxing out the resolution on the headset. So now that we got through all that stuff, we're going to throw the headset on. We're going to hop into iRacing. I'll show you the settings that I'm going to run in iRacing that we're going to be testing with. And then we're going to test it with the Oculus software. We're going to test it with OpenVR and also OpenXR. I've never really ran OpenXR or OpenVR. So this is going to be kind of a first for me. I don't know if any is going to perform better than the other. I've always ran it through the Oculus software, and I am running this through the iRacing app. Some people run iRacing through Steam, so that might, you're using something else in that case, but I am running this through the iRacing software. So you might have different results if you actually run through Steam as opposed to the iRacing app itself. But I'm excited to check it out. I'm excited to see things. I'd really appreciate it if you guys thumb up that video and think about subscribing. I'm the casual racing gamer, so we just do lots of racing game stuff here. Nothing, no professionals here, just casual racing, having fun, having a good time, hanging out. That's what it's like here. So, really appreciate it if you guys hang around and subscribe. So let's throw the headset on and let's do some testing here. All right, guys. So we are strapped in with our headset. As you can see, we now have our performance up there. So it'll show you the latency. It'll show you how much headroom you got and frames dropped and other things like that. So let's hop into, we're going to hop into a single race AI. We'll just do some practice sessions. We're going to be at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And the first one we will choose when we're doing this in the next gen NASCARs. First one, let's hop right into Oculus. This is the one I use all the time. So we'll hop into that. We'll check out the settings I use in iRacing, and then we'll see the different performances that we get from the different options of running your Quest 2. Let's get into it. All right. So one thing to take into consideration is, of course, I am screen recording through OBS. So, that's going to affect some of our performance here. But let's hop in. Let's go to settings here. First thing you want to do is you're going to want to go to your options, and for your show frames meter width, make sure this is on numeric. So change that. If it's on something else, make sure it's on numeric, because we want to see this in a number format. Then let's go to our graphics setting, and we're gonna go to class 1, and then we'll just mess with it right here. So cars we'll use on high detail. Pit objects, we don't really care about pit objects. It's not going to affect your actual race. So if you want to lower something, definitely lower pit objects down. Event, we want our event stuff here, so I'm going to keep that high detail. Grandstands, I'm going to keep that high detail. Crowds, you can shut this off if you want. We'll leave it on low detail. Objects, I'm going to leave on high detail. You know, some of this stuff you can turn off if you need better performance. We're going to look down here. We're going to leave all this stuff here. 16 for anisotropic filtering. Like we can leave it on 16 and we can leave this on 4 and we can run it. See how we're going to do. I think we're going to be just fine. Again, this is going to change based on your system, but we're going to compare the same settings through the 3 different options of running the Quest 2 just to see how they perform. If one performs better than the other. We'll leave on this stuff. We're gonna do shader quality. We'll actually go high. So I'm gonna remove object self-shadowing and dynamic objects. Shadows to me on certain things are just distracting, especially in VR. So sometimes they flicker. So I'd rather just remove them. Everything else we're gonna leave here. 2 past trees. We're not worried about trees and stuff like that here, but I don't really care about my trees looking good on other courses that have trees. We'll leave all this stuff on. Sharpening, I am definitely going to put on sharpening. I'm going to remove HDR, and I am going to throw on anti-aliasing, and I'm going to use FXAA for this one. SMAA uses more power, so we can just go with FXAA. And right now, you know, we should be getting a really nice picture here. Also, make sure Enable SPS VR is checked there, and that would be all my settings. I can actually boost this up. I'm running. I think my has 10 gigs available on my GPU, and I'm running 32 gigs of RAM, so I can pump that up too. So we're gonna pump that up, and then we are gonna go done, and we will hop in to our warm-up. We will start that over. So for me right now, everything is like super clear. There's no compression. The roads are very detailed. Again, we're running at 500 megabit bit rate, so we're not going to get that compression. We're running really good quality graphics. We're running at extreme high resolution. You can see I still have performance headroom. I'm at 50% now. We haven't started driving yet. If you look up there, you can see the numbers. So it is showing 71 frames per second. So that's actually 72. iRacing will show you like 1 frame under what you actually have it set at. So that's the correct setting. The R that you see there is for your processor, and your G is for your graphics card. So as long as you're under 12, that's the number you want to be at. You want to be under 12. So we are good right now. We're sitting at 6. Obviously, as we start driving, things will change. Obviously, more cars on the track. Things will change with that as well. So if you didn't change that setting earlier that we did in our file, that would be locked at like 12, and you wouldn't see it actually moving in real time. It usually just locks at the high number of like 12, I think, and it just stays there. So make sure you set that number, set that to set that to a 1, and then you'll have that. I can't think of this setting back in the video where we went into our notepad file and we edited that out. So now there's more cars on the track. Things are happening. You know, our numbers are boosting up a little bit. I'm still showing 50% headroom. So let's hop out. Let's get on the track. Don't judge me for my driving right now, because I'm going to be looking around at different numbers just to see how things are going. And obviously when you're driving a race car and you're looking around at things besides the track, you're not going to drive too well. So all right, here we go. So I have, as you can see, I have a ton of headroom right now. So, you know, what that'll tell you is if you really want to, pump up graphics and things like that, I still have room to pump up. I can still go probably to a higher resolution. I'm running like a 7 and a 6 between my processor and my graphics card. Now, I will say when I use the Quest and I do use OBS, I do get a little bit of stuttering, although it's not showing in any of the numbers. But it's definitely not as smooth as when I shut my recording off on OBS. It definitely runs smoother, but it's not reflecting in the numbers. So my numbers is still looking good. Everything is running smooth. I'm still running, at a 6 and a 7. So I have a ton of room there. I still have a ton of headroom. So this is running through Oculus software, and everything is just looking great actually. So I'll be curious when I try the other, the OpenXR and OpenVR, if things are going to start to change as far as, am I going to get that same stuttering when I record? When I don't record, it's super smooth. But when I run OBS, I do get kind of like a stuttering effect, but you wouldn't notice that in the actual screen capture. And then we'll stop it here, and then we're gonna then hop to our next one, and we'll test it out. But you know, numbers look good. Obviously, when all the cars are on the track, it's going to be totally different, and we can actually see what these numbers will go to with all cars on track if we just hop quickly into a race. So we can go start race right here, and we can grid up, and then let's see when all the cars are actually on the track, how our numbers sit, because that'll usually start really, you know, giving your performance a hit. So we don't actually have to start the race, but you know, once all the cars get out there and run this warm-up lap, we'll be able to see. So you see my R, which is my CPU, has jumped to a 10. My graphics card has jumped to like a 7, and it's kind of like hanging around there. So you know, we're still under where we need to be. As we pull out, you know, we'll drop a little bit there, and then you know, we're still running at 71 frames, and then you know, things are slowing, lower in, higher in. The more cars you have at that starting line, especially with all like the crowd and the stands and all of that, you know, if those settings are high up there and you just have a lot going on at that part of the track, you know, all that stuff is using resources. But you know, here we have our screen up there with actual video playing. You know, all this stuff is using resources. So we're now at like an 11 on our CPU. We're at like a 7 on our graphics card. We're running, you know, we still have headroom in the headset. So again, you know, you can obviously play around with your settings and see how your settings are doing. So let's I'm gonna pull over here, buddy. Let me over. We're gonna pull over. He's not letting me over. Ready? We're gonna make our way over. And now let's hop into, let's try OpenXR next. All right, so here we go. So we're gonna try actually let's go to OpenVR is next. So let's just go in order. We'll do OpenVR next. All right, so here's something interesting. OpenVR actually put me into Steam VR. So to use OpenVR, I guess you have to have Steam VR installed. If you don't have Steam VR installed, you might not be able to open this. But that's where OpenVR is putting me. So let's see. Let's see what type of. I feel like this might be more taxing on our headset. Running iRacing. I don't think iRacing is actually running through Steam VR iRacing, but it's using Steam's VR app. So let's see what we get here when we hop in. All right, so here we go. So we are in, and right off the bat, moving my head around, the headset is kind of wobbly and wiggly. The picture is wobbly and wiggly. It's definitely very distracting and feels like it can make you pretty dizzy pretty easily. All right, so this is really distracting. We're gonna try to get through this. We're gonna go class 1, leave that on medium. Even my mouse is kind of like bugging out. It doesn't want to like move around. Pit objects, I think we went with low on that, right? We leave that on high, crowd's low. We left all that stuff alone. We left all that alone. We went to high detail there. We removed this stuff. I think we left shadow maps. It doesn't matter. We're not at night. We removed that. We removed that. We put sharpening on. We removed HDR, and then we went with FXAA, and we have that all raised up. And this is really distracting. But let's see what happens when we actually get in the car. All right, our car is like totally bugging out right now. Our numbers are insane right now. I'm at 38 frames a second. My R is jumping all over the place. My G is all over the place, and I can't even like run right now. I can't even. This is just like so distracting. You can see my performance headroom is like, we're way down in performance. Now it's kind of picking up. All right, now that we got driving, all the flickering in my head that was making me like really dizzy kind of stopped there. Our numbers seem like they checked a little bit up there better. We're now in like 5 and 7s, but when I move my head back and forth, the whole screen is moving with my head. It's extremely distracting. You know, while my numbers up there say that they're okay, it's definitely not. This is not playable. The whole track moves when I move my head back and forth like that. So this is OpenVR, which runs through Steam VR, which is definitely not something I'm going to recommend to use. But let's try OpenXR, because I do believe some of you guys have left me comments that you use OpenXR. So we're gonna get out of this terrible mess really fast, and let's try OpenXR. OpenVR was a no for me, but let's see how OpenXR runs for us. All right, here we go. OpenXR. Let's hop into our options menu here. Make sure we have all our settings kind of the same. So we'll bring that up, bring that to class 1, medium, high, medium. Pit objects, I think we kept on low. Crowds on low, blah, blah, blah. All good, all good. All good, all good. Move that to high. Remove that stuff. Remove that stuff. Put that on. Remove that. Put that on FXAA. Everything is up here. And let's okay, let's hop in. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if also having the performance chart from the Oculus app, you know, showing that, if that's even using resources. So, you know, shutting all this stuff off and screen recording obviously is gonna improve things as well. But let's hop into the car. Let's see what our numbers are. So we're in the car. You know, obviously everything looks the same. This looks clear. Looks much better than what we were seeing in OpenVR. Something interesting I'm noticing up there, while I'm hitting my frames, my CPU is now using up is at a 13.8, where my graphics card is at a 6.7. Running it through the Oculus app kept those numbers pretty close to each other. But right now it looks like my CPU is getting used more than my graphics card using OpenXR. I'm not sure why that's the case, but let's, you know, I am showing the same amount of headroom here. You know, we are still holding our you know, 72 frames. The latency looks the same, but it's kind of interesting that it's using a lot more CPU power and not split evenly like we were seeing. So that's a little bit of an interesting stat there. It still looks like it's same, you know, running 13.8, which is where we don't want to be. So a lot more strain going on the CPU. And the graphics card is only showing a 6.5. So there's definitely a difference the way the two applications to run your Quest 2 are running. You know, I'm still kind of showing the same. You know, I'm not paying attention to the road, but I'm gonna start a race and see what happens, and see if those numbers, you know, as we're gonna even, you know, use more resources going into a race with all those cars. I'm curious if it's gonna start giving more to my GPU. But definitely that's an interesting difference right there. Let's grid up and see what happens here. All right, so let's see what's gonna happen. We're still running really high on our CPU. Our GPU is still at a 6 and is set between 6 and 7. It's not swapping out to my GPU from my CPU. So kind of interesting stat right there. You know, we're still showing the same amount of headroom like we were getting before. You know, we're still where we need to be there. But I think the way to go is through the Oculus app. If it's gonna off some of that power to my GPU, which is what I prefer, then putting it all on my CPU, you know, with that CPU being a pretty high number. Headroom is definitely, you know, going up, going down, dropping all around, but you know, it's still locking at 72 frames. I don't see my frames dropping. But let's just start the race and see what happens. Here. But let me know, guys. Let me know if you run the Oculus through Oculus, or if you run through OpenXR. If you've tested them, the differences that you've seen. And if you do run OpenXR, I'm kind of curious why you would run it. Definitely interested in knowing why you would run it over the Oculus app, which is obviously, you know, which is going to be tweaked, you know, for your actual Oculus headset. So let's you know, we're still keeping our frames. It's just kind of interesting. I find it really interesting that we're seeing such a high usage on our CPU. It's going up to like 14. Now I know, I obviously know OBS is affecting this number too. So you know, we're going to see higher numbers than if it wasn't running. But the offset between the two numbers, where there's a difference of like, you know, the CPU is running twice as my GPU. You know, we're at 13.8, where the GPU is at like a 6.9, 6.8. It's a very big difference from what we saw in the Oculus, through the Oculus app running it. We're not dropping frames though, right? We still have a nice amount of headroom. But you know, what am I gonna go with? My choice. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna stick with the Oculus. I'm gonna definitely stick with the Oculus app. Well, you know, I might do some more testing with OpenXR, especially without, you know, with OBS not running. I'm kind of curious if anything, you know, if it'll run at least number-wise better. But it's kind of like a little shocking of the difference there. So I'd be kind of curious why anyone would actually run OpenXR over the Oculus app. Making a move on the inside here. Making a move on the inside. I do like Charlotte. It is one of my better tracks to race on, compared to a lot of the other tracks. NASCAR, Charlotte is one of my more comfortable tracks, and one I usually perform a little bit better on than others. But I think we can end it here. I think we found out some good information. I'd love for you to share any info or information that you guys know. Again, this wasn't a scientific test. I don't ever run these other, these other apps for the not apps, but like the APIs that they use for OpenVR, OpenXR. I usually strictly run Oculus, so this was kind of something new for me to check out. And I was able to share some of my settings that I run with and I use. So I'd be curious to know what you guys run, what you guys use. Leave it in the comments. Let me know. If you guys want to thumb up that video, that would be really awesome. If you enjoyed what you saw, hopefully you did. And definitely think about subscribing, sticking around, enjoying some races. Anytime I have something to share, I love to bring videos like this where I can, do some testing, share some things. And on that note, guys, as we pull into, we're running. What are we running? We're running P6. We're running P6. I think we're running P5 now. We're running P5. We're moving up. But we're gonna end it here. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one, guys. We out of here. Peace.